Hello and welcome back to Stop and Go F1 for this, our driver ratings for the Hungarian Grand Prix. A race which I hated more than any race I think I've ever seen before. My reaction and review of the race came out yesterday, so if you haven't seen that, that's on the channel if you want to check it out, along with the F3 and the F2 as well. The F2 was actually good, so go watch that. That was wonderful. Anyway, let's talk driver ratings. If this is your first time here, we'll give every driver a score between 1 and 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. And as always, we start with the Haas lads. Firstly, Kevin Magnussen. Now, Haas been coming off some fantastic results over the last few weekends, but this was kind of a more return to a more normal Haas from what we've seen over the past previous seasons. Kevin Magnussen qualified 15th, finished up in 15th. Uneventful for Haas, who always do tend to struggle at the Hungaroring. I can't remember the last time Haas had a good result here. It's not one of their favourite ones. I'm going to give Magnussen a 5 for his performance there. Meanwhile, Nico Hülkenberg had a bit of a better weekend. Qualified 11th, was 0.010 off of getting into Q3, nearly beating Lewis Hamilton. He would have knocked out if he'd got through there. In the end, starting 11th, would finish up in 13th place, which, is pretty solid. I'm going to give him, it's a 7 or an it's going to be a 7. It's a 7 for Nico Hülkenberg there. Zhou Guanyu continues to have a dreadful time. I remember Zhou being quite good. I remember his debut season was good, and I remember last year he was all right. Zhou this year has been pretty dreadful. So he qualified 18th, beating both of the Alpines, but beating both of the Alpines who weren't out on the track when the track was at its fastest. And then in the end, he finishes 19th, only beating Gasly, who didn't finish the race. So, yeah, again, another very bad performance from Zhou Guanyu. Is a 3 or a 4? I mean, I guess he did beat the Alpine. I'll give him a 4. I'm feeling generous. The race put me in a bad mood. I'm trying to counteract that by giving good scores. Valtteri Bottas now. Now, Valtteri had a very good qualifying, actually. He qualified 12th, very much like Hülkenberg, very close to getting through. I think he was 0.07 off of getting through into Q3. But, the Sauber is dreadful and has no race pace. Ends up in 16th place. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10, because I think in that awful, awful car, I think he did pretty well. I'm having everything crossed for Valtteri that he has a seat next year. I'm hoping for the Williams. I think Valtteri and that Williams would be fantastic, because this cannot be the final season of Valtteri Bottas. I was never a huge Valtteri Bottas guy, especially when he was in Mercedes. I always thought he was a bit bland and boring. But since leaving Mercedes, the way he's showcased his personality, I think he's been fantastic. I really enjoyed his work at Alfa Romeo when they were actually capable of doing good stuff. But yeah, this can't be the end of Bottas. Hopefully in the Williams next year. Let's go across to the racing bills now. Here they are. Yuki Tsunoda qualified 10th. Had the big crash, of course, in qualifying. Would finish the race in 9th. A decent job for Yuki. It seems to be very much kind of in a little world of his own, really. I don't remember seeing much Yuki on our screens. He kind of just started the race and came home in 9th. So, overall, decent points for the team. I'm going to give him an 8. Good stuff, Yuki Tsunoda. Daniel Ricciardo had a very interesting weekend. So, he looked really fast in FP3, and I thought, wow, we're on for something here. And then he topped Q1, and I was like, okay, we're really on for something here with Daniel Ricciardo. In the end, he would qualify 9th and finish the race in 12th. So I was like, where'd all the pace go, Daniel? Where'd it go? But who knows? This might be his last race in this car. or maybe his penultimate race in this car. I think he is Red Bull bound by the time we get to the Netherlands. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, he gets a 6 here for this weekend. Let's go to Logan Sargent now. An interesting one for Sargent. A good qualifying. Qualified 14th, not too far off Albon. His qualifying is definitely improving. You've got to give him that. But race pace, again, not necessarily there. 17th place he finishes in the end. I'm going to give him a 5. Across to his teammate, though, Alex Albon now. And Albon, he qualified 13th, would finish off in 14th. Yeah, not a great weekend for Williams here. Just had... I mean, their qualifying pace was good. Race pace, alright, but nowhere near the highs that we've seen from them previously over the course of the year. I'll give Albon a 6. Awful weekend for Alpine. So like I said before, in qualifying, at the end of Q1, when everyone was setting really fast times, Alpine went, nah lads, let's just keep the cars in the garage. So both of them very quickly fell down the time screen there. So Ocon was the lead of the Alpines in 19th place. But it turns out they had no pace anyway, and he finished up in 18th, only beating Zhou Guanyu. Just a bad weekend for Alpine. And you know what? I don't know how it's happened, but I've turned into one of the biggest Alpine defenders on the planet over the course of this year. I've been cheering on the good old ship Alpine, saying, look how much they've improved. They're getting so much better. Think about where they were in Bahrain. They qualified at the back of the grid, then had no race pace. They're doing great now. Then this weekend, they qualify at the back of the grid and they have no race pace. They're making me look a fool. And I don't need any help with that. So Esteban Ocon, you can have is it a 5 or a 4? I don't know. Let's go. I mean, it's 18th. Is it as bad as Zhou, though? I don't think it is as bad as Zhou. Maybe it is. You can have a 4. You get a 4, Ocon. There you go. I'm going to give a 4 to Ocon. And Gasly can have a 4 as well. I mean, Gasly qualified 20th, then had a pit lane start, seemed to be going okay, and then had to DNF, retire the car due to a hydraulics issue, so was the only person not to finish the race. And when he did retire the car, it was in that point when some had pit and some hadn't, so it's very hard to tell where his pace was realistically. I think he was like 11th or 12th when he retired the car. So let's just go with a 4 for both the Alpine lads and call it a day. Aston Martin now. Lance Stroll. He did okay. Qualified 8th, finished in 10th, bring home 1 point for Aston. Aston in an awful place right now. Big upgrades on the Aston this weekend, which once again seem to have done absolutely nothing. I don't actually know if Stroll had the upgrades, because he definitely didn't in FP1. I don't know if he did for the remainder of the weekend. Either way, the car is about the same, because it always is. I'm going to give him an... I'll give him an 8. An 85? No, yes, an 8. But now there is stories coming out that it was Alonso ahead of Stroll, and Aston said to Alonso, let Stroll through to see if he can get past Yuki. If he can't, we'll reverse the positions. He didn't get past Yuki, and then they didn't reverse the positions. So who knows what happened there with those. I'm changing it from an 8. He's having a 7. I've changed my mind, everyone. It's a 7. But we'll have to see if the Aston Civil War is all it's meant to be. Let's carry on to Fernando Alonso. So he was the lead Aston in qualifying 7th instead of Stroll's 8th, but was 1 place behind in the race, finishing 11th. I'm going to give him a 6, but like I said, team orders may have been at play in the Aston. We don't know. Team orders may have been at play at McLaren, and by may, I mean they were. We all heard them. Oh God! Right. I'll just keep this quick. I think is the word I'm looking for. It took me a long time to think of the word quick there, but McLaren were quick, very quick. Oscar Piastri qualified second and finished the race in first. His first ever win. He gets a 10 out of 10. Well done. Lando Norris, he qualified on pole. The first McLaren front row lockout since 2012. Great stuff. The first McLaren 1-2 finish since 2021. Great stuff. I'm going to give Lando Norris a 10. I don't think anything controversial happened, did it? No, it was all fine. Let's be serious now for a second, if we can. Realistically, this is a hard one to grade because we don't really know who was the faster of the two. Oscar Piastri took the lead at the start, managed the first half of the race really well, built a bit of a gap from Lando, and then McLaren messed it all up, and then ruined the entire race for everyone. So I'm just going to give them both 10s, and we're just going to move on. If you want my full rant, it's in the race review from yesterday. Go check that one out. Carlos Sainz did an okay job in the Ferrari, but better than okay, actually. I take my words back there. So he qualified 4th and ended up in 6th place. Which is the opposite of Leclerc, who qualified 6th and ended up in 4th. But I'm going to give Sainz a 8. I think it's a decent job. The Ferrari hasn't really been there this last few weekends. They have had a couple upgrades here. It seems to be going a little bit better. Still not as fast as the Mercedes, the Red Bull, or the McLaren. But, these guys, they got their heads down. The Ferrari strategy worked quite well, and they were in the mix. So, good job from everyone involved. Charles Leclerc, as I said, qualified 6th, ended up in 4th place, massively benefiting from Max Verstappen's mistake towards the end of the race to gain a position there. But at the end of the day, still did a very good job. I'm giving Leclerc a 10. I thought it was a fantastic race from him. Really just kept his head down whilst everyone else was losing theirs and pulled out a good performance. Let's go to Mercedes now. George Russell, dreadful Saturday, absolutely awful, qualifies 17th, a track where he was on a pole position 2 years ago in Mercedes. He now qualifies 17th place, but a decent recovery to 8th sees him get a 6 from me. It would have been interesting to see how his pace would have compared to Hamilton if he'd had an okay qualifying. He got the fastest lap towards the end of the race, so he had some decent pace underneath him, got some good overtakes throughout the race, but yeah, was kind of just having to recover from an awful Saturday. Not the last time I'll be saying that in this video. Lewis Hamilton had a fantastic weekend. Qualified 5th, finished the race in 3rd, took his 200th podium. I mean, that's a mad statistic as is. I'm just going to give him a 10 because, I thought he did really well fighting against Max for a lot of the race. I mean, fighting Max Verstappen in a Red Bull is a difficult job, no matter who you are. Even if you have had 200 podiums, it's still very difficult, and he managed it really well. Even like when he made mistakes, like when he locked up into turn 1 at that one time, he was able to come back and still put the pressure on Max for him to go wide into turn 2. Really good stuff from Lewis. I would say one of his best races of the year. I don't think it's better than his win in Silverstone, but it might be his second best race of the year. I'd have to check, though. Very good, though. Sergio Perez is next as we enter Red Bull corner here for the driver ratings. Another bad qualifying. Huge crash saw him fall to 16th place and out in Q1 again. But much like George Russell, a good recovery throughout the race saw him finish in P7, which might be one of his actually better finishes of the last few races, which is a bit mad. But yeah, okay, I'll give him a 6. Good stuff from Perez. And then Max Verstappen. So he qualifies in P3. Very, very close free in qualifying. Then at the start of the race, there's the whole incident where him and Norris, where, Norris kind of pushes him out wide because that's the only way that he can go. Max gains the advantage, comes back on, gives the place back. Then, he didn't really have the pace in the McLarens, so he was just falling back and falling back. Then it seemed like Red Bull just got the strategy wrong, where Max has had to constantly be on the offensive because every time he pit, he was going to get undercut by the likes of Hamilton and even like Leclerc. So he had to just fight through the Ferraris and the Mercedes time after time after time. So he was frustrated from that, and it seems like the car with these new upgrades, as much as it had increased the pace, it seems like the brakes and the balance of the car just weren't where he wanted to be, which was causing him to go wide and lock up and all that kind of stuff. So the strategy wasn't there for him, the car wasn't there for him, but he still managed to carry really good pace and was actually having a quite impressive race, despite the fact that he was furious. And I'm not sure if you were aware of this, but Crofty let us know that he hadn't had much sleep the night before, so that was quite interesting. But then, as well, there's the incident with Hamilton, which I said in my review, he had the pace, but not the patience. And I'm quite happy with that line there, because I think it perfectly describes his race there. A few more laps, maybe he has a really easy pass on Hamilton there. I think there's like 10 laps to go when he did it. He definitely was quicker than Lewis was. And, we saw that with like the likes of Leclerc, when he was behind Leclerc for a few laps. But then as soon as he was past him, he was gone. I think it would have been the exact same with Lewis, the fact that he caught him so quickly multiple times. So Max had the pace for P3 and ended up 5th. So, not a great weekend for Max Verstappen. I'm going to give him it's a 6 or a 7. I mean, I'll give him a 7 because I'm feeling generous. But there you go. There are our driver ratings for the Hungarian Grand Prix. A race I, quite frankly, never want to discuss ever again. So our top scorers are Piastri, Norris and Hamilton. Lowest scorer of the weekend goes to Zhou Guanyu. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your driver ratings are in the comments down below. We'll be back on Friday for all things Belgian Grand Prix preview. The last race before the summer break, and then during the summer break, don't worry, don't think the F1 goes away, stop and go F1 goes away. No. We'll have loads of content every week. Big videos coming up on the Fridays during the summer break, and then the weekly news videos coming out on the Saturdays during the summer breaks as well. So loads of stuff to come on the channel. Make sure you subscribe for that. Shout out to our members, Dakota, the Joyous James, and Robin Myers. I think I forgot to say that at the start of the video, so I'll say it now. If you want to become a member, there's a link in the description. Until next time, though, have a good one. I'll see you later. Goodbye.